Jai Hind viewers, welcome back to the Global Strategy and Defense News. Today, we are going to talk on a very important topic, that is the lessons of the Iran war for the Indian Army. And to throw light on this very important topic is an eminent persona, Brigadier Deepak Sinha sir, who is a second generation paratrooper who has been instructor in the Defense Services Staff College Wellington, been instructor in National Defense Academy Khadakwasla, has been instructor in a Bhutan military school as well. He has authored a book also, which is by the name Beyond the Bayonets. He's a very experienced defense analyst whose writings I very keenly follow, and I requested him to come on my show, which he graciously agreed. First of all, sir, welcome to the Global Strategic and Defense News.
Good morning, Karan Sodhi. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm a bit hesitant in such talks because I'm not very good at talking on all this. I prefer to write, but nonetheless, thank you very much, and it's an honor actually. Thank you.
Welcome, sir. So my first question is that, in your opinion, what are the lessons that the Iran war has taught the Indian Army?
Right, it's a very interesting question actually, and I think the main thing of our topic. So before I touch on the specific lessons, I thought it may be worth taking a bird's eye view of some of the issues that would help contextualize these lessons and help us draw lessons from this conflict. So first issue I'd like to touch on is American decline. For quite some time now, we've been hearing about how America is in decline and China is on the uprise and on the rise, etc. But we should remember that America has been the dominant power since 1945, after the Second World War. And even today, its GDP is double that of China. Its defense budget is, I think, 4 times that of China or 3 times that of China. And along with that, I understand. I mean, I agree that it is in decline, but I would put it that it's worth recalling history. The Roman Empire lasted for about 200 years before they had their first troubles. 250 years actually before they had their first troubles in around 236 AD. And for 50 years, they had this civil war and all these problems there. Then they split into two, and it became the Western Roman Empire, which had its capital in Rome, and the Eastern Roman Empire, which was the Byzantine Empire, which was in Constantinople. And the Western, even in decline, the Western Roman Empire lasted another 200 odd years, while the Eastern Roman Empire lasted another 1,000 odd years. So they kept losing, but they went down, but it took time. So we shouldn't give up on the Americans. I mean, the Americans are not going to give up without a fight. And they will not go down as we see it happening just because Trump is there and we see things going wrong. It's got a long way to go still. So we need to be careful on this aspect that, regardless of what we see around us and regardless of what has happened now, it isn't that the Americans are just going to go straight down and, off a cliff. It's not going to happen. I think that's worth remembering. I think that is what scares or scared, I think, President Xi when he talked about that Thucydides trap, because he knows that if China gets involved in a scrap or in a violent with the conflict with America, then it loses out. It's never going to be able to catch up. So I think that's one aspect of it. The second aspect I'd just like to touch on is Iran. Now, Iran has been preparing for this conflict for the last 40, 50 years, I think. They have known that this conflict was unavoidable. And I think they have done a very good job of how they have prepared, which is what takes us to the points that you want to know. So if you look at it, the Americans, I mean, to understand how the overall aspect of why America went in, because that's what will give us the lessons. It's worth remembering that I think there are some analysts who have said this. I have also written on it much earlier in 2017, 2018, that their reason for interference, they are otherwise self-sufficient in terms of oil and gas. So their reasons for interfering in the Middle East was to create problems for China. And that is what some analysts have also said now, that they went in here to try and make it difficult for China, which they haven't succeeded in, is a different point. But that was their basic overall thrust, I have a feeling. It's an old playbook of theirs they used against Imperial Japan before the Second World War, when they squeezed Japan and forced it into the war to fight them, and Pearl Harbor happened. And finally, Japan got destroyed. So this is an old playbook they've tried to follow. But I think basically we need to understand their immediate aims were the regime change, decapitation, shock and awe, lightning campaign, etc., to quickly win over the whole thing. Deal with the likelihood of a nuclear weapon coming up in Iran, where they had the uranium and everything else. So they wanted to stop that. And despite the earlier bombing of it, they still felt that they're still capable of doing that. They also wanted to, I think, destroy their missile capability, because they realized that the ballistic missile capabilities are very, very good, and that they would make life hell for everybody. The fourth point I would put on this is they wanted to roll back the proxies who are troubling the Houthis, the Hamas and Hezbollah, who are troubling Israel. So this was in conjunction with Israel. And the last point I would put in an aim, which is not so much an American aim, but which was certainly an Israeli aim, is was to make Iran into a Syria, convert it into a Syria, in the sense that with civil war and dissension, it would not be in a position to do anything. And they could carry on with their aims of what the Zionist aim is of expanding their territory and becoming the most dominant power in West Asia. I think all that has obviously not been achieved. And I think most even American commentators like Professor John Meishamahar and there is, I think, Colonel McGregor, then even one of the most ardent neoconservatives, Robert Kagan, has also, who was a champion of US hegemony, has also said that we have lost this war. I would go a step further. I would say that they have not lost the war. Their defeat has been even worse than what they faced in Vietnam. After Vietnam, they never withdrew from Asia. They still had all their other Asian bases and things functional. Here, the way they've been hit in West Asia, their bases are basically non-functional, and it is actually humorous to hear that they are working from home from hotels. The people who are sitting in their bases are working from home, which is ridiculous for any, I think, for any military to be talking about. But that's the situation. So they have really been very badly hit. I can't think of any other comparison to this. I mean, they're worse off than they were in Vietnam. In the same thing, I just add a small point on the Russian-Ukrainian situation, which normally tends to be brought up with all this, is that Russia and Ukraine are today if you had to compare them to a previous conflict, it's like the Korean War. Somebody's compared them to the Korean War, where they have more or less fought themselves to a standstill, with neither side being able to achieve complete success. So they are probably going to be, I mean, we know Korea is the longest, it's still a war in progress, the North-South Korea thing. It's only got a truce, which is holding them apart. But otherwise, the war, there has been no peace treaty after 1953 when they stopped firing. So this is going to be something like that. That is my view on this. If you come to, when you think about lessons, most analysts first talk about geography, which certainly is important because Iran geography matters. Its terrain, its mountainous terrain, the manner which it overlooks the Hormuz, the Straits of Hormuz. These are all major aspects of it, and these are not something which the neither the Americans or the Israelis were not familiar with. What I find really funny in this, and what I find odd, is that America went into this war without a firm base in the region. Which, if you look at the Iran map, all the areas on the side, it's on one side, it's got Iraq, on the other, it's got Afghanistan, Pakistan, and all those other states. It doesn't have, America doesn't have a base or an ally there from where ground forces which are adjacent to Iran, from where operations could be launched. So it doesn't have a firm base. So I don't understand. It obviously means that they have never conceived going into a ground or launching a ground offensive. So that brings me to the first major lesson, I would say, is the fact that that to expect air power to win you a war is something that's never happened in history till now. I mean, we've heard of the bomber campaign during World War II. It's been attempted later, but it's never been successful, and everybody is aware of that. So to have left it only to air power to change to achieve all their aims just doesn't make sense to me. That would be one lesson which I think greatly counts. And the other, along with this, so I would say that you can't do a war without ground forces being involved. That one has to keep in mind. For us, that's a very big lesson, actually. I mean, air power is not going to win us anything, nor is going to win. Like, I mean, we tried in, let's say, Op Sindoor was only air power going in, or whatever we wanted. But if you have to win something, you'll have to be ready to put in ground forces with all the attendant problems that it has, casualties, etc., that will happen, and the chances of the war expanding. That's one point. The second major, to my mind, the second major lesson that comes out is the absolute failure of sea control, on which America has based all its policies till now. I mean, they are the only ones who have the ability to go anywhere in the world and land there up. But that's because they have these carrier groups which have been able to do all this. But here they had 3 carrier groups which had to move over 1,000 kilometers away from their area of operations because they couldn't last out. And there are rumors that one of the aircraft carriers got hit and therefore had to be pulled out and stuff like that. There are a whole lot of rumors like this. I don't know whether it's just plain speculation or whether it's true, but certainly they moved their carriers and their things away. So yes, sea denial is in progress. They have been able to do a blockade and all that, which they are doing, but they're doing it from a distance. I think the time for capital ships like an aircraft carrier and all have been shown that their time is up. I mean, I would put it that way, if one were. A lot of aircraft carrier people or naval will not agree, but regardless, that is, to my mind, an important lesson to keep in mind. So even if we are looking at sea control, we shouldn't be looking at a blue water navy which will give us something. It's not really going to happen. I think we should think of sea denial as our main force, towards what we are looking at. The third thing I would point to is that the Iranian leadership has shown a lot of spine. They've really they've stood up. I mean, there is this old saying which, they've shown very bold and determined, and they've been really bold in their actions. They've been very determined. They've been very resolute. So all that shows up. There has been little talk, much more they have actually shown by action, which actually reminds me of an old Alexander the Great said that, an army of sheep led by a lion is better than army of lions led by a sheep. We've faced this issue. I think, in my mind, this is one of the issues we have against China. We are never able to stand up because we lack the spine to stand up. It's not that we don't have the ability. It is this lack of spine which comes up. The other point, which, what the Iranian exhibited smartness, their leadership, because they realized exactly where they stood. They realized what the capabilities and weaknesses of their adversaries were, and they hit the adversaries where it mattered most, which is smart thinking. And I'm actually a bit. I feel that, we've been, for example, in our country, we keep talking about the defense budget and how it's less than 2% and how it should be increased. And I've been one of those who've been very vociferous in this and writing that we should go up to 3% and stuff like that. But here, just think of it. The Iranians have an official defense budget of about $7 billion. Actually, on ground, I've read somewhere else, it's equivalent to about 23 billion. But they are fighting. The Israelis have 46 billion or 47 billion defense budget, and the Americans have 900 billion, and yet they have sorted out both these countries. So, and we have a budget. We have a defense budget of 92 billion. So I actually have now come to the conclusion that it's not the budget you have, it's what you're aiming for and how you want to go about it. You have to be very clear in your head what you want to achieve. And if you prepare for that, then you'll get it. Otherwise, you could be hitting all over the place, which is one of the basic lessons to my mind. And I think it really matters in this case, because if you look at all the way this conflict has gone, the other aspects which I would touch on is that to why the Iranians have done so well is, firstly, in how you define victory. I mean, they have been very clear that if they can stand up and keep delaying the Americans from achieving their aims, they have emerged victorious and the Americans have not. And they have realized that their key result areas were keeping the Hormuz closed, maybe keeping even the Red Sea closed if required, or going for those communication, those underground lines and what have you. So they've had all the cards that they had in their hands, they've played them to the hilt. And they've been able to delay it. So the time is on their side, and they've taken full advantage of that. I think that's one of the most important aspects of this, connected with what we said. And I think their first action that they did of destroying American bases and threatening the American allies and saying that don't help them has, and the West Asian allies, has, I think, put those people under a stress. It has forced the Americans to, I think, at the end of all this, the Americans will be forced to take their bases out of there. They have not been able to provide the security which they were supposed to have given in return. So I think there is going to be a big shake-up in this area over all this. The next point I would come to is, every commentator talks about asymmetrical warfare. And everybody says that the Iranians have been, the way they've fought this asymmetric war and is fabulous. But to my mind, asymmetric war in the conventional sense is when you are talking about low intensity conflict, or you're talking about gray zone warfare, or you're talking about, that kind of fighting a guerrilla war or whatever. That's what asymmetric warfare has always been about. Here, we've changed it to where people say that, okay, these people have not matched the Americans tank for tank, but they have chosen their weakest point and then gone for that with their missiles. So they built up or say the Navy, they couldn't build up a Navy equivalent to the Americans, which the Americans could probably bring to bear in this area. So they've built up these fast boats and what have you, and are able to mine the channels and close everything down. I don't think that's asymmetric warfare. I think that's normal conventional war. They have taken, I mean, in any conventional war, you want to choose the adversary's weakest point and hit him there. So they've done exactly that. That is my reading of it. I would look at it that way. And yes, where they have done a different thing is in the sense, one must realize that their forces are not small. Their conventional forces are not small. They have their what do they call it? The Iranian armed forces are called the Artesh, and they have I've got it written down somewhere. They have a strength of about 420,000 people personnel. They have 4 or 5 armored divisions. They have about 6 infantry divisions. They have 2 commando divisions. They have a marine brigade. They have a airborne brigade. They have a special forces brigade. So they have very sizable forces available to them. And along with that, if you look at their other IRGC, that itself has around 200,000 more people, along with armored brigades and divisions and all that. They have all that as well. Though, of course, the IRGC controls the complete ballistic missiles and the drones and all that is the UCAVs, whatever you want to call them, are controlled by them. So in that sense, if you look at it, the IRGC was basically meant for unconventional warfare, which is why you have the Quds force, which was training these other proxies and all that, is a part of the IRGC. And IRGC is basically the unconventional part, which deals with basically with unconventional warfare, fighting a low intensity conflict. That's what their basic things are. And they are the ones who have here achieved tremendous amount of things. So that is one. The other aspect why I'm talking about the strengths is that, in the first Gulf War, Iraq had a strength of about, their military strength was about 450,000, nearly 500,000. And to fight that, the Americans and their coalition partners brought in 1 million troops. Their forces they put against it was 1 million. Today, in the state that America is, with a lack of allies or anybody else willing to fight with them, if against a 450,000 odd, which is what again the Iranian forces would be, and if not more given their paramilitary as well, they need to put in, they can't put in 1 million troops against them. They don't have that kind of force levels to put in. Therefore, their ground offensive is just not is untenable, actually, thinking of a ground offensive, which is why probably they didn't think of it in the first place, which is also why none of the earlier presidents ever went to war against Iran. That's my thing on this. So this would be the other aspect of the lessons. Of course, the other third lesson in this is the manner in which the Iranians have used their ballistic missiles and their drones and all that stuff, and their concept of using mass against sophistication. So while they have themselves got very sophisticated multiple re-entry and all that type of stuff, but their major thing to defeat American and Israeli air defenses have been basically very simple drones and missiles, which have been in bulk, which they have used in mass, which has confused the sophistication of all these or overwhelmed the air defense systems. So that I think is also a very important lesson. The next I would come to is command and control. Now, both their armed forces, the Artesh and the IRG, the Artesh, by the way, has a single commander. It has a overall CDS kind of a chap, and the Army, Navy, Air Force come under him straight. So it's a joint force in that sense. And the IRGC, which is separate and which is actually more ideological or whatever, but even their operations directly under the the supreme leader is the Armed Forces General Staff. That is the one which controls and coordinates between both these forces and gives the orders and controls all operations. So that is one aspect. So their command and control has been quite unified, despite the fact that they are also duplicated everything and followed that whatever that mosaic command system, basically what you would call, decentralized command, they followed. Or I would put it, we have we talk of directive style of command, and leaving it to the lower commanders to follow the intentions of the commander and all. That is what they have followed more than anything else. I think they haven't centralized command and control. The next point I would say is their information warfare, which includes cyber. I would also add surveillance to it, though they may not have that surveillance capability and have been provided that by the Russians or the Chinese or whatever, as some speculate. But that has made a lot of difference to them, and their cyber capabilities and their int gathering and their electronic warfare and things have been very, very, which is why everybody has come to know of those, those Lego, these things of theirs, and how everybody, even the Americans, are following their Lego, those videos they put out. So that is one aspect. And the last point I would give in this is indigenous manufacturing. They realize that given these long periods of production, their research and development of missiles and UCAVs has been superb, and everything has been produced in-house. So that is what has given them the ability to continue fighting despite all things being hit so hard. That's where I would put it there. These are basically the points that I have on this aspect.
So your answer was very informative, very insightful. Let me tell you, the kind of in-depth points you gave, I haven't seen on any television channel till now. So really salute and respect to you, sir, the way you have brought it out so beautifully. And viewers, I would also like to tell you one thing, that in the army, the best of the best officers, the creme de la creme, go to the para special forces who wear the maroon beret. They are really the best in the Indian Army. And sir, by the way you have explained, absolutely, sir, my immense respect and regards for you. So we have, there's a little constraint of time. I just have about 7-8 minutes left. So I would like to ask you 3 questions combined. So one is the necessity of theater commands in the Indian Armed Forces, for which there's a lot of talk. The second connected question is your views on the Agnipath scheme, and because of the vast experience you have had as a para brigade commander, as a para special forces officer. And sir, the third is the pace of reforms in our country. Is it of the requisite pace when you compare in few months the theater commands in China were created, in few months the CDF in Pakistan appointment was created? So your views on these 3 combined questions. I'm sorry, but there's lack of time, sir.
Right. No, not at all. Not at all. I'll give you a very simple, straightforward on this. I don't believe theater commands first came up. We were talking about theater commands after the Kargil War, and I think they had value then. Today, if you watch what has happened, they have very limited value. I mean, what are we? We are not a continental army which is going to go intercontinental and go into other countries. We have never been that. So we are really not in that point. And it is in actual fact just adding another layer to our command, because are you going to, you will still have under the theater commander, you will still have one ground forces commander. So you'll have an army commander under him. That is how the Americans have it. You'll have a Air Force commander under him, and you'll have a naval commander under him. So if in one theater, let's say the Northern Theater, which has something like I think 12 or 14 divisions, I don't know, something like that, where you have at least 4 corps or so worth of forces deployed. Are you going to have only one army commander looking after those 4 corps, or would you have, right now you have of those 10 or 12 divisions, or would you want those 3-4 corps which are there are with two army commanders? So I don't know. I don't understand whether a single ground force commander can look after all the number of divisions that we are going to have deployed. And finally, the theater commander may coordinate everything, but it's going to be ground forces commander or the air forces commander who's going to be fighting that job, doing the fighting. So I'm not too clear about this aspect. I don't think adding another layer to our military is there. What I would say instead is that you probably, looking at how the Iranians have done it, you need a strike command, which deals with unconventional warfare. So you put in all your ballistic missiles and all your drones for strike drones under them, and you put in some of your strike forces, all your special operations forces under them, SFF and everybody else, and make that into your primary thing for fighting against the Chinese. I mean, basically, we must realize that our threat is from China, and we have to prepare for that. Pakistan is just another proxy for China, as I think Admiral Raja Menon, I think, put it some time back in a article. So we should forget about Pakistan. We should worry about China and really look at it from that point of view. And maybe we should be able to take on Tibet through just missiles. I mean, we can, we are not fighting China really. We are fighting Tibet. And Chinese mainland is 2,000 kilometers away from Tibet. So if you are able to knock off all their bases in Tibet, they can't bring in forces there. They can't carry out an offensive against us. So do we need ground troops to stop them, or do we need what Iran has done, that kind of thing? I would look at all those aspects. Connected with this, when you're talking about Agnipath, now all my writings of Agnipath has been that I'm against that scheme. I find it very, it's destroyed our regimental spirit. It's destroyed cohesion within units, etc. I have no doubts that that is what is the biggest problem there is. And it's going to create, I think we're going to see problems now coming up after the first lot have left and the new lot come in, and lack of motivation and all that comes in. So I certainly think there are certain units which should not, but the other way of looking at it is that, look at Iran. It has conscripts who are fighting. It's the bulk of their troops in the army, in the Iranian armed forces is conscripts, except for the commando units and the airborne and the SF. But and of course IRGC is purely voluntary. So you see the difference in the quality of troops, and I think in that sense we need to reconsider changes in the Agnipath, retaining more people for a longer time, because there are so many discussions that have happened on this, and we all know that the disadvantage of it. So I would say it's been a very poor. We've lost out a lot, and I think it needs to be changed or modified, if nothing else. That's what I would look at. Sorry, your third question was on.
So my third question was that the pace of reforms in the Indian armed forces when we compare to the reforms pace in China and Pakistan.
True. I think our thing has been that we are confused. Our systems have been made in such a manner that we confuse ourselves. So, I'll give a simple example. You have, I recall from, we're writing a paper like the gunners send a paper up to say MOD saying that we want, the emphasis on not just gunnery, but on using simulators and stuff like that. And the infantry sends a different paper saying that simulators have only limited scope in the infantry. And the chap who's sitting there, who's a civilian who doesn't know either, he looks at both and uses both arguments against each other, and you get nothing from either side. That has been our problem. So we don't have a cadre which is actually looking after the stuff, which knows the stuff. So they are dependent, and their easiest for them is to avoid giving any decision. So that is the delay which happens to a large extent. I think that has been, and we are not clear what we want. So if Iran with just $23 billion can, over a period of time, can build itself such a formidable rocket force or a ballistic missile force, what has stopped us? We have never thought of looking at Tibet as that. We don't even teach our people about the Chinese army. I mean, you have that Nark and Chandal pamphlets, but actual troops don't know much about what they are facing. So we have never learned and how to draw what are the weaknesses that the Chinese have. The fact that their army has a conscript problem, that they can't, their troop level, their training of troops is very limited, that they have no experience. These
Sir,
things we just miss out.
Sir, I'm sorry to interrupt, but the time is
Yeah,
almost up. And sir, I really want
right.
to thank you for having given such great views. It has been such a learning for me, for my viewers, and I would request the viewers to please forward the show as much as you can, like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And sir, thank you so much, sir, for having come on GSD and having given your valuable time, explained things so well, sir. And sir, let me tell you as a parting remark, sir, you not only write well, you speak equally well too, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
It's very kind of you. You're giving me too much credit. I mean, I have views which are slightly hatke, so that carries on. Other than that, but thank you very much. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. In any case, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Jai Hind, sir.